Welcome back, everybody. You know, City Limits is it's a New York City-based nonprofit news source that segments its strengths toward the community engagement on civic, economic, and social justice issues. And on May 16th, they're going to be relaunching their Bronx Bureau with a conversation on poverty and networking. All right, and here to share more about City Limits and their upcoming projects is Jordan Moss and City Limits Managing Editor, Jarrett Murphy. And City Limits Editor-in-Chief, we welcome you guys to the show.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You guys have been doing this for a little while. It's a nonprofit?
Yeah, it's a nonprofit. City Limits was founded in 1976 during the city's fiscal crisis. And this was a pre-internet age, and so the purpose of it was to allow people who were fighting for their neighborhoods in the Bronx and Brooklyn and elsewhere to exchange information about that fight and to use the tools of media to extract information and accountability from government. Over the years, we realized that even beyond the fiscal crisis, there were issues that the mainstream media simply couldn't cover, and neighborhoods, particularly in outer boroughs, low-income neighborhoods, that they didn't want to cover. And City Limits has long stepped into the gap to provide investigative news coverage of public policy issues, particularly those affecting neighborhoods like those around us here in the Bronx.
Exposed.
Right, exactly. And now we've long covered the Bronx, but we're now trying to provide more in-depth, acute coverage of the borough, and so we'll be launching it tomorrow with an event at the Bronx Museum of the Arts.
Yes. And Jordan, of course, you're involved in this. Tell us why we relaunched Bronx Bureau.
Sure. It started out with the Norwood News, which was published by Mashu Preservation Corp., a non-profit group that was founded by Montefiore, and that started in 1988. The Norwood News in one community board, 7 in the Bronx.
Right.
Over time it grew, and we launched the Bronx News Network in 2006 because we wanted more Bronxites to be involved and to learn about our coverage,
yes.
and to cover even more. There are 12 community boards in the Bronx. Only about 4 have actual newspapers in them.
Yeah.
And
so you work with a lot of the community boards throughout the Bronx.
Yes, and now we'd like to work with more. We'd like to cover boards and neighborhoods and issues throughout the Bronx, and highlight those that exist, important ones that exist, and more people see it, but to cover a lot of things that go uncovered throughout the Bronx, especially parts of the Mid and South Bronx and Southeast Bronx.
Yeah. And Jarrett, how do you get more organizations or community boards to get involved?
Well, we're hoping to involve them as readers and as sources and as tipsters. I mean, the idea is to create a community online for the Bronx. 1.4 million people live here. If we were our own city,
yes.
We'd be one of the top 10 of the country. But we don't have a daily newspaper that covers the whole city of the Bronx. We have BronxNet. We have some resources that are very valuable, but there's a lot going on out there. And so we think that by creating a place for all those people in the Bronx, that whether it's on a community board or the precinct council or their little parks group, or just a neighborhood association, or just folks who kind of look up for what's going on in their block and their part of the world. Those are our readers. That's our community, and we think we're going to be trying over the next, weeks and months and years to engage them as readers of the news and as people who tell us what's going on.
There's a world of CBOs, community-based organizations. I mean, I'm sure they would love some sort of coverage.
Yeah, we'd love to cover issues like that aren't being done now, and we'd love to hear their side of things too. We'd love to make room for op-eds and things like that, so more people learn about that.
Especially for a lot of nonprofits, you get 30-second public service announcement or 1 minute public service announcement on TV or radio, you know, and then looking for outlets like such as yours to expose or create the awareness about their organization and what they're doing.
And the issues they work in are so complicated. That's always been one of our main focuses, is that
Yeah.
dealing with things like poverty, housing, environmental justice, education reform in the Bronx, it's not a 200-word or 2-minute proposition. It really requires a lot of nuance and depth. And that's what we've committed to do for our readers for a long time. That's what we want to do for the Bronx. I mean, Jordan and I have lived in the borough for basically our adult lives. And when we travel outside, we often hear people, you know, still kind of like recoil when you mention the Bronx. Countering that, both countering the perception and to the degree that it's true, countering the reality by improving the Bronx, that's sort of our driving goal.
Yeah.
And in terms of improving the Bronx, we'd like to see more folks involved, like the Assemblyman said. We want folks to be more engaged and to learn more and to register to vote. So we hope to be interactive in that way, to involve and educate more people and to spread the word about things that they care about.
Is there a different way of presenting what you're doing than other organizations?
I mean, I think the way we do it is you know, the way we select our stories. You know, there's not any celebrity news, there's no sports news on City Limits or on the Bronx Bureau. And we tend to, you know, use, like I said, investigative reporting tools to probe into public policy issues. So when we look at an affordable housing story, it's not simply to document what people are saying and not saying. It's to look, you know, in depth at documents and facts and financial records and try to piece together what's happening, who's responsible, separate the kind of truth from myth. You know, that our focus is to use, you know, we're committed to this mission of improving the Bronx, but to use it, we use the really, really hard-nosed, pounding the pavement, street journalism tools. And when we put them together, we think that's a pretty powerful way to engage the public and inform them.
Yeah. I think that's powerful.
We hope so.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Now, this is both on the internet and hard copy paper?
It's
newspaper?
all internet now. Yeah,
All
we used to have a
internet.
magazine, but now we're out of the business of killing trees. And purely online. So yeah, we can find City Limits is at citylimits.org, and the Bronx Bureau will be at
BronxBureau.org.
Oh.
And as I think you know, the launch of that is going to be on Thursday, tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at the Bronx Museum of Arts
Oh, wonderful.
on the concourse.
Yeah, and that's also on the website that you guys
Yep,
have.
all that information is on the website.
And what's the
Definitely, people
website?
are welcome. It's citylimits.org.
Yes.
There's also tacklingpoverty.org.
Let's talk about tackling poverty. What can you tell us about the third installation of City Limits, which is tackling
Well, it's a series
poverty?
we've had for the past year. And the idea is, you know, we've covered poverty now for 37 years at City Limits, and not me personally, but the organization. And there's a cycle to it. You keep talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. The idea is to bring people who know, we know how to solve poverty in many ways. And the question is, why hasn't it happened yet? And so this series is about looking at poverty in depth, different facets of it: education, joblessness, politics, and this time the housing and homelessness issue, and talk about, you know, really in very brass tacks terms, what do we need to do to finally address this? And so we'll be looking at homelessness, which is a particular problem not just for the whole city, where we have record numbers in the shelters, but for the Bronx, where a lot of homeless people come from the Bronx because of evictions here. And there are also a lot of subsidiary issues, like how shelters are located and where homeless people are placed in apartments, and sometimes that has the effect of driving, you know, a low-income rent-paying tenants out. So trying to get our hands around all the different facets of this crisis as it affects people right here, and kind of talk through, we have a mayoral election on, you know, what happens now.
And a lot of people say, well, you know, in order to tackle a problem, you have to get to the root of the situation. What do you think that root would be?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, there is obviously a gap, and it's a yawning gap, and it's growing, between what people, especially in the Bronx, make, the income they have, and the rent they're being charged. And that gap is something that, there's a basic math equation there that's difficult for people to deal with on their own. It's difficult for government to deal with. And that's what we're seeing here, is just this, you know, mismatch between what people are paid or what they have and what landlords are charging. And somehow we have to figure out how to either fill that gap or close it. I think that's probably the root of the problem.
The max of rents that seem safe to most advocates is half of what you make or the income you have, and it's getting to be more than that in several ways, and that's the biggest
Yeah.
concern.
Well, I'm glad you guys are here with this wonderful project with your citylimits.org. That's where people go, citylimits.org. And they can get a wealth of information. You
Yes,
guys are teaching, people are learning. And just one more thing before we go, let everybody know what you want them to know.
We want people to know that we want them to be readers, we want them to be tipsters. You know, they know what's going on better than we do. We want to hear from them. Engage in our work, tell us when we're doing a good job and not. And really, particularly on the Bronx Bureau side, we're looking to build a community here. And if they're watching the show, that means they're our target audience, and they should be in touch.
There you go.
And you know, one thing that I meant to add is like an example of you know, the importance of coverage like this of things like the Kingsbridge Armory. You know, we covered that. I did from '93 on, and brought more folks into the effort. And you know, things didn't go well all the time. It was a long time, but now we're there. It's not because of us, but we helped nudge things along.
There you go. You bring people there.
Yeah,
Here, this is
right.
what this is. You present it to them.
That's the
Right,
idea. yeah.
exactly.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Jordan Moss, City Limits Managing Editor, and Jarrett Murray, City Limits Editor-in-Chief. You guys are coming back with more information?
I hope so.
Yeah, you got to
Okay, great.
continue
Cool.
giving us the information.
Great,
Thank
thank
you so
you.
much.
Thank you.